Hi everyone, I'm Sneha and I'm here with Dilshad Dayani, who wears many hats. She's the founder of World Women Global Council. She's a motivational speaker and a diversity coach. She's a broadcast journalist, and she's also a former Mrs. Dallas USA. And to top it all off, she's also an acclaimed author. But today we're here to talk to her about her role as an author because she has just come out with her latest book, Confrontation 9, which is a book about inspiring your spirit to overcome challenges and achieve your highest dreams. And what I find really interesting about this book is that it is very grounded in cultural values that we're surrounded with and talks about how oftentimes we attribute our successes to conforming to these cultural elements. So without much further ado, I want to invite and welcome Dilshad Dayani.
Thank you, Sneha, for inviting and helping me share my perceptions about the book.
Before we start on anything, I want you to share with us your personal journey as an immigrant from South Asia, because I know a lot of the book is based on your personal stories. So take us on this wonderful journey and tell us what inspired you to write this book.
As an immigrant, like any other, there are like a few challenges that I faced when I came into this country. And I mentioned this in the book. One of them is systems. And we have to learn new systems because there is a major change of the systems that we experience in our countries. And here what we experience is a multiple choice system where you have plenty of choices to choose from. And then in that process, you have to be alert, you have to keep yourself knowledgeable, and you have to keep yourself updated about the choices that you will be executing in terms of how it's going to benefit you. The second thing that I thought was, which is very challenging for people, and that is how to adjust into the new environment, how to make yourself presentable. If people have children, they can completely relate to this fact because they have to build the teacher relationship, they have to build that kind of rapport with the administrator so that children can thrive. Now, those are very different tools that you exercise in your home country, and this makes it all the more difficult. Then it comes with the accent, your language, the way you think differently, and also your clothing. So these are some layers that I experienced as I was moving around in the Los Angeles area, which was my first home. And it has been interesting, experimental, and I would say fulfilling up to this point. And I would definitely vouch that as an immigrant, we are always kind of challenged at different phases of our lives with something or the other. And we have to constantly modify, redefine, and come to a certain set of ideas and beliefs where we can feel comfortable merging the two cultures of the home country and the host country and handpick the values of what we like to do. As far as your question goes about, before I go to the inspiration of how I wrote the book, I would definitely say the third challenge is about children. That was one of the biggest challenges I think I encountered because now you come at crossroads. What are the things that you want to incorporate from the conditioning or from the cultural standpoint, how you were raised, and what are the things that you want to incorporate from the mainstream? How would you strike a balance? And what is that balance? Every family has its own balance now because they have to themselves define what is good for their children. And in that process, what happens is that you want your children to be confident and successful in the mainstream because that's where you have chosen to be and pronounce as your home now. So basically, it has been that when you come into this country, it's not just that you ended up in a dreamland. You have to continuously readjust, realign yourself with the new ideas, new innovations, and without kind of swaying with the whole conformity idea that is going on around you as a society.
Moved to the US in the 90s, correct?
Yes, early 90s.
Right, so it was a very different world than it is now.
Absolutely.
So you were learning so much yourself, and at the same time you had the challenges of being a parent, so it was multiple factors all hitting you at the same time.
Very
so
true. Very
it would have been a very complex sort of, scenario, but amazing that, you derived inspiration from it, and, it all culminated into this book.
Yes, and the inspiration came from, I would say that I usually used various platforms to transmit whatever learning I have accomplished in my life. And it's been a privilege to share with the people and help people. And the book, when people ask me what was the inspiration, it has been so coincidental that I was with a friend a couple of years ago, mentor, and when we were talking with, it was a long discussion, and they said, you need to start writing books, because that way people can learn more, and it is going to be in a permanent format, and you should narrate all that you have learned. And I've been very privileged working with global communities of multicultural women and learning from them. And in that process, I have come across so many good things in my life that I felt that they have shown me so much inspiration to go on with my life. So basically, the inspiration came from the mentor who kind of said that you need to articulate that, and it would be a fabulous platform. And since I was using various platforms, so I started writing this book about 19 months ago. And since then, it has been very addictive, and it has been a pleasant journey. So I'm glad I could finish this book soon.
Well, I'm glad you finished this book, because as an immigrant from South Asia myself, I related to so many things from this book. So I'm glad you completed this, for sure. Now, you talk about roadblocks and self-limiting beliefs that hold people back from what you describe as being meaningful success. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Sure. One of the things that I have seen, especially in the field where I have been working a lot with women, is their self-limiting beliefs. And one is that the culture dictates to them the prescription of how far they can go and what is good for them. What is a good woman? And what is a bad woman? What is a good mother? And what is a bad friend? So there is a lot of things that the culture tells you. And in that domain, what you intend to do is you try to struggle and you try to fit in. You try to keep on confirming and getting approval from people. And in that process, then you realize that you have never been able to make anybody happy in this journey because you have been approving, and getting acceptance from them, but you have never been yourself. You haven't been true to your own self. So basically, this is one of the things that you try to lower the volume of your inner voice, and you try to keep on doing things that are kind of dictated by the people around you, because that's how you can get recognition. That's how you feel that you will be approved of as a good person. So these things need to be changed. So one of the things is how far you go into conformity, compromising your individuality. Second thing is that you get very scared with the idea of change, that who is going to support you if you kind of disalign yourself and do the things that you wish to do. So that scares you a lot. That is also a belief that you won't be able to carry on for very long, and if you do, maybe you would be a sore thumb, or you may stick out, and that may not be appropriate for your family or some other people around you. So you kind of take another step back. The third one, which I usually see, and it is a very surprising factor too, that we are so much bound by the social circles that we live and we breathe in, and it is nothing bad, and one needs to have those, but sometimes we go way beyond those social circles to listen to the opinions and the judgments to our personality, and we lose our confidence. Mm-hmm. In that process, we think that they are thinking about us all the time, which they are not. And what happens is that you kind of start losing your inner strength. And in this whole ball game, you feel that you are the one suffering, because now if you go back to the question, these are the self-limiting beliefs, and if you do not question them, then you will be doing the things that are part of the habit circle. It's a vicious cycle. You keep on doing them, and then at one point in time you realize that they are not making you happy anyways. Even though you may belong to social circles, you may be doing the things that people have asked you to do, but in the long run you realize that, this is not who I am. And then you start changing the script of your life.
Mm-hmm. I know, and that's why people should go out there and read your books so they can save themselves a lot of time and trouble and start doing these things at a very early stage. And what I found really interesting, about that need for approval, whether or not you are conforming, people are always going to have their opinions.
Absolutely.
And it's very important to be true to yourself, to your own dialogue, and to your own journey, and to live, on your own terms. At the same time, being very respectful to people around you and to people who help you on your journey. And, that's something that really resonated with me. And so because your book is so rooted in, cultural elements that surround us, can you talk a little bit about the tools in your book that, would help people overcome these roadblocks and help them be the best version of themselves?
Yes, the tools in every chapter are they set the stage for that chapter's requirement, but I talk about CLEAR 5 principles, and it's an acronym of like you clarify, you learn the skills that are required. For example, for cultural conditioning, you adapt the skills that are required to overcome the conditioning that you have been using it all your lives. For example, if there was a certain practice in your family that you have been doing it and you feel that this is of no value to you at this time, but it was a tradition that was done when you were growing up, and now you can question, but you don't see any value to it, of course, there is the time that you would like to abandon that and do something that is of value to you, to your family, to your children. And that is nothing wrong with that. So when you learn these kind of tools for questioning, when you learn the skills that are required to think through the process, those are the things that will help you in the long run to acquire that individuality that you're looking for. But in any part of the book, it has never been rejected idea that you should not conform. You should always conform, because this is, in the sense, on certain parts of your life, because that creates a smooth flow in society. But you have to ask why you are conforming and to whom are you conforming, to what content are you conforming. And this must be questioned periodically in your life. So basically, the CLEAR 5 principles talk about having to clarify in order to achieve clarity. Then you learn the skills, and then you embrace the challenges. And in every chapter, it shows you how to do that. Very important that you realize that when you talk about faith, either you take the power of that faith and put it in your body, in your mind, and you kind of do not live in a prisoner body. Because when you listen to other people's judgment calls and shallow callings, then you live in a prisoner state. You are living as a kind of a hostage in your own body. And that kind of prevents you from unleashing a lot of your potential and strengths. So basically, when you amplify that idea of faith within you, and you realize that this is who I am and I can do it regardless of the people who believe in me or not, I will make an attempt. And that kind of gives you the power to own your own identity. And I think a lot what we strive to do in our culture is we listen a lot, we are consumed by the media, the media conditions us, and we need to sift through the white noise and listen to our inner voice more of who we are, what we want to do, what is the purpose, and why do we want to kind of cling to conformity when that is making me unhappy in certain areas.
Right. So, I've been hearing a lot of prominent women like yourself and Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook Talking about stepping up, leaning into the conversation, asking for what you want, and not being afraid to go after it, whether it be career, family, or your personal passions. And I've often wondered, doesn't it all get overwhelming, especially for women at a certain point? So I'd be really curious to know what would be your recommendation to
Yeah.
us women, to create our own definition of meaningful success.
I think, Sneha, the most important thing, and I love this question, I've been asked this before as well, that I talk about going after our dreams and aspirations and keeping a balance. And at the same time, it gets overwhelming for a lot of people. It gets overwhelming because we are not using our own brand of success. We are not using our inner calling. When we listen to people around us and when we listen to what is right in the society, what is popular, in fact, in the society, and we keep on doing that, then it overwhelms us. But when we come up with our own confident definition that this is who I am, this is what I want to be, and I don't want to listen or follow other people, no matter if I belong to that social circle, but I will be who I am because these are my capacities. We have to work with our capacities. And when we decide either to stay home or to work, we should not be bogged down by other people's opinion. And we should stay strong when we decide that we want to stay home, no matter what people talk about us or our friends motivate us to do. And whether there are maybe 15, 20 babysitters that are really good, but the mother does not feel comfortable, then she needs to stay home. That is her definition of success. That is her definition of being a mother, where she can deliver, be happy, and her capacities tell her that when she wants to be with her child 100%, that's how she wants to give it to her or him. I think when you define your own parameters and your capacities, that's when the true definition of meaningful success, you can come up with.
Of course. And do you think society or corporate America, so to speak, is ready, to sort of look at women in that way? Do you think they're leveled, where women are, today and where corporate America, or if for that matter, society in general is?
I don't think so. Corporate America is ready at this time because it's been a long journey, and I've been with that kind of advocacy work. I think a lot has been said about women representation in the workforce. It's not enough. Political representation is not enough. And all it talks about that women needs to stay in the workforce and say the things that they need to say. And I do not mean to say that women do not need to work and just sit at home. But what I mean to say, because there are single mothers who are doing an amazing job of balancing both the things. And it is a personal choice. And when you make those choices, what I'm trying to say in the book is that you have to be very clear about your choices, so you don't regret that what you have done was something that somebody told you or something that came from other sources around you. And media constantly, kind of gives you a very foggy perceptions of success. And if you see that the concept of success also kind of changes as you go from one phase to another in your life. And coming back to your question, I don't think corporate America has seen women at an equal terms. Even when women go back to work, or even when women have children and are working, they are not paid enough at this time. And instead of changing the women's front, I think it is very important that we change the mindset of the men, that whatever women are doing, they are contributing to the family. Right. And once they start contributing to the family, it is the whole economic picture that we are seeing at a very, very positive scale. So it's not, I don't see it as a gender fight at all. I think it is something that we need to educate men more about how it's going to trickle down as an output, as an effect, when we believe and when we give women the dues that they deserve, especially when you are working right now and you're not paid equally. But it requires a lot of campaign action on part of women, and I think a lot of men have taken over this this journey and are supporting women to help them achieve that.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. It's, it takes effort on both sides. It's about women stepping up and leaning into the conversation. And it's also about men accepting that and being open to it, and having a collaborative conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I really love that you have included that, in your
It's chapter 9, which talks about what we are going to leave behind. It's about legacy, your footprint. A lot of us, are in good positions and we work, whether we are homemaker or we are in the corporate environment. And a lot of families want to give back. And how do we give back and create a plan for our children to be happy? And the book discusses about the compassion principles we can practice in our daily lives, and through that principle we can leave a legacy in the lives of our children, because they see us building that plan and they themselves take over, and that ownership goes to our children, and eventually they lead the lives that will make them absolutely happy. The other message that I would say is that it will give the readers a very insightful experience to understand that how various research has been collaborated with the soft skills and tools in the book, and how on one side we talk about the logical side and the other side is how do we accomplish that and come up with a softer scale or a perception in our life where we could practice the things that are more about value-based. I don't think we have any issues with the materialistic perspective at this time. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of materialism that has been bombarded on us with the media. What we need right now is to find a medium where we can find certain things that are of extreme value to us, and how we can make those things create a good balance in our children's life and also in our lives, so we can feel the meaning behind our existence.
Of course, thank you so much. That was wonderful. And thank you for joining us, Dilshad. This has been a great conversation. And all you viewers out there, please go out and get your hands on a copy of Confrontation 9. You can buy it on the website, confrontation9.com, or it's also available on Amazon.com,
yes.
right? And there's a special promotion going on Kindle for $6.99.
Right,
so I think that's great. And it's until next week, so definitely go out there and buy your copy.